Those false tears don't wash away accountability. You've pulled the ultimate power move that's left them mentally scrambled, desperately faking distress to cover their tracks. But waterworks can't extinguish spiritual fire. What they're experiencing isn't just your personal payback. It's ancestral justice being served cold after generations of patience. Your bloodline carries a force they never calculated into their equation. Your lineage doesn't forget, doesn't forgive without proper atonement. That's why they're really shaking. They've finally realized they're not just dealing with you, but with an unbroken chain of power that spans beyond time. They thought you were alone. Foolish assumption, never understanding that when they faced you, they faced an entire ancestral army. Generations of warriors, healers, seers, and spiritual gladiators who cleared paths through worlds seen and unseen, long before your physical form took its first breath. These doubters dismissed your spiritual warnings as delusion. When you spoke of protection, they rolled their eyes. When you mentioned divine guidance, they scoffed. When you tried to caution them about forces beyond their understanding, they laughed in your face, treating cosmic wisdom like the ramblings of someone disconnected from reality. Little did they know they were standing before a chosen one, a direct line to realms of power they could never access with their spiritually bankrupt existence. Your connection wasn't built overnight. It was forged through generations of sacrifice, spiritual discipline, and sacred covenant. Your bloodline carries codes that their spiritual DNA could never replicate. Now they see glimpses of what you tried to tell them, strange occurrences that cannot be logically explained, bizarre coincidences that seem targeted specifically at their weaknesses, sudden reversals of fortune that leave them questioning their sanity, doors closing in perfect synchronicity, opportunities vanishing without explanation. Divine timing is real. So is divine retribution. You tried to tell them, not as a threat, but as a courtesy, a spiritual heads-up from one soul to another. But they chose arrogance over humility, mockery over respect, temporary gain over eternal wisdom. And now, they whisper your name with reverence when they think no one is listening. Now they wonder if perhaps you really were connected to something greater. Now they question if they should have heeded the warnings you offered as gifts rather than treating them as jokes. Too late, far too late. The wheels of cosmic justice turn regardless of their belated recognition. Your power never needed announcement. True strength rarely does. While others beat their chests and proclaimed their importance to anyone who would listen, you carried ancient wisdom in silence, letting your actions, your presence, your energy speak volumes that their limited vocabulary could never articulate. They misread your kindness as permission to take advantage, your compassion as an invitation to overstep boundaries, your patience as weakness that could be exploited without consequence, your soft voice as the absence of authority rather than the confident whisper of someone who doesn't need to shout to be powerful. What they failed to recognize was the duality of your nature, the perfect balance of divine feminine and masculine energies that allows you to nurture with one hand and deliver justice with the other, the spiritual maturity to heal and harm, to build and destroy, to elevate and eliminate, all with the precision of a cosmic surgeon operating on the universe's behalf. Your gentle exterior houses a spiritual assassin, a precision instrument perfectly calibrated to carry out divine assignments with deadly accuracy. You are both the soft rain that nourishes the garden and the lightning strike that splits the mighty oak. You are the gentle breeze on a summer day and the hurricane that reshapes coastlines, and that's what terrifies them now. The realization that they never knew what they were dealing with, that beneath your smile lived a being connected to ancient forces willing to move heaven and earth to defend their chosen one, that your silence wasn't submission, but strategic calculation, the patient observation of a spiritual predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They never saw your hidden strength because they weren't spiritually evolved enough to perceive it. Like colorblind individuals trying to appreciate a rainbow, they lacked the spiritual receptors necessary to detect the magnitude of what stood before them. Witness now the great reversal, the cosmic correction that happens when universal forces restore balance to situations tainted by disrespect, betrayal, and spiritual arrogance. They once stood over you, casting shadows with their inflated egos, blocking your light with their self-importance, looking down with contempt from positions they never deserved but somehow obtained. They once spoke over you, interrupted your wisdom, dismissed your insights, and rewrote narratives to position themselves as heroes in stories where they were actually villains. But divine justice operates on a timeline beyond human comprehension. The universe doesn't rush, it aligns, it doesn't forget, it waits. It doesn't forgive without accountability, it orchestrates perfect moments of reckoning where the truth cannot be denied, manipulated, or reframed. Now they tremble as the foundation beneath their feet, built on lies, deception, and the exploitation of others, begins to crack. Fault lines appear in the empire of cards they constructed. The borrowed energy they've been operating with suddenly gets reclaimed by its rightful owners. The masks they've worn begin to slip in public, revealing the true faces they tried so desperately to hide. Notice how your opponent's lives begin to unravel in ways that defy logical explanation. How obstacles appear out of nowhere. How their most private thoughts and secrets suddenly become public knowledge. How their health mysteriously deteriorates despite medical intervention. How their relationships implode without apparent cause. How their financial stability evaporates despite their best efforts to maintain it. Your bloodline carriers knew this day would come. That's why they passed down protection prayers, sacred rituals, and spiritual technologies designed specifically to activate in moments like these. The spiritual DNA you carry contains fail-safe mechanisms that automatically trigger when someone with malicious intent crosses certain boundaries with you. These opponents laughed when you spoke of ancestral protection. They dismissed the power of those who came before you. They treated spiritual warfare as superstition rather than the sophisticated cosmic technology it actually is. Now they tremble as unexplainable forces systematically dismantle everything they've built. The most terrifying aspect for them isn't what they can see, it's what remains invisible yet undeniable. The sense of being watched by eyes beyond physical perception. The nightmares that wake them screaming, drenched in sweat, unable to articulate what they saw, but deeply shaken by the experience. The whispered names they hear when no one is around. The objects that move without explanation. The electronics that malfunction only for them. The message is clear. This one is protected. Proceed with respect or face consequences beyond human comprehension. You were designed with perfect duality, the ability to heal and harm, to nurture and destroy, to elevate and eliminate. This isn't spiritual contradiction, it's divine completion, the fullness of power that allows you to be precisely what each situation requires. Most can only access one side of their spiritual nature. They're either all light with no capacity for necessary darkness, or all shadow with no ability to generate light. They operate in spiritual limitation, half-beings unable to maintain perfect balance between opposing cosmic forces. But you move effortlessly between realms. One moment extending compassion that heals the deepest wounds, the next delivering judgment that rewrites destinies. You can speak words that breathe life into dying dreams, or utter phrases that collapse entire realities. Your tears can cleanse spiritual impurities, or your laughter can shatter illusions maintained for lifetimes. This duality terrifies those who operated under the delusion that you were one-dimensional. They categorized you, put you in a box labeled with their limited perception, believing they had you figured out. How shocked they are to discover you contain multitudes, that the gentle healer also carries a spiritual sword sharp enough to sever ties across multiple dimensions, that the quiet observer they dismissed harbors the power to speak new worlds into existence. This is why they cannot predict your next move, why their attempts to manipulate you eventually fail, why their strategies against you collapse under the weight of their own limited thinking. They're playing a game using half the pieces, trying to anticipate movements from forces they've never encountered. Your spiritual duality isn't just personal power, it's divine strategy, the ability to respond to any situation with exactly what's needed. When kindness is required, you become the embodiment of compassion. When boundaries must be established, you transform into the enforcer of cosmic law. When healing is necessary, you channel universal life force. When elimination is the only solution, you become the instrument of divine removal. Those who only know one side of you are strangers to your true nature. Those who've seen both remain forever changed by the experience. The capacity to witness your complete spiritual expression is a privilege few have earned, and one that forever alters their understanding of what exists beyond the veil of ordinary perception. Look, you already know the game is rigged, and if you're paying attention, you know the walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. When you live by the day at the market's command, where profit and property rule the land, to be heard, to be held, to be dealt a fair hand, these are the things that a people demand, and we hear you. The obsidian inner order has paywalls. Yes, those who stand with us, who fuel this mission, they give us ammunition to fight the Archons, to push back against the machine, to go deeper, to uncover more. And as our thank you, paid members get access to a 1-hour live, personalized weekly group tarot reading, guidance, insight, and clarity for the road ahead. But kicking a man for being down on the floor, that's something we cannot ignore. That's why starting today, you can steal the Astral Atom exclusive daily newsletter for free. No paywall, no catch. Just join the Patreon free tier. Link in the description. This is the start of our conversation with you, and it's bi-directional. You can reply to any email we send you. We'll read it, we'll hear you, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you from the universe itself. If you can support, we need you. If you can't, take what's free. The Obsidian Inner Order is open. Now, let's get back to work. Now they weep. Now they tremble, now they beg, now they attempt to rewrite history with tear-stained revisionism that fools no one, least of all you and the spiritual forces aligned with your highest good. Witness the performance of a lifetime. Oscar-worthy displays of remorse from those who showed none while inflicting damage. Grammy-deserving songs of sorrow from those who laughed while causing pain. Tony-qualified theatrical displays of regret from those who calculated their betrayal with cold precision. Watch how quickly these tears evaporate when they believe a different strategy might work better. Observe how rapidly sorrow transforms into rage when manipulation fails to achieve desired outcomes. Notice how seamlessly remorse morphs into resentment when forgiveness isn't immediately granted in response to performances never deserving of an audience. What they fail to understand is that true repentance isn't performed, it's embodied. It isn't announced, it's demonstrated through consistent action over time. It isn't demanded, it's offered without expectation of reward, forgiveness, or reconciliation. Their tears are strategies designed to evoke sympathy, manipulate emotions, and escape consequences. But divine justice doesn't operate on human timelines or respond to emotional manipulation. The cosmic ledger requires balancing. Regardless of how convincingly someone performs remorse, some lessons can only be learned through experience. Some understanding can only be achieved through consequences. Some wisdom can only be gained through loss. Their crocodile tears mark the beginning of education, not the conclusion of cosmic correction. True tears, those shed from authentic remorse and genuine understanding, carry the power to heal, transform, and restore. Crocodile tears merely dampen faces while leaving souls completely dry. There's power in your distance now, sacred strength in your ability to observe without intervention as the cosmic plan unfolds with mathematical precision. You've moved beyond the battlefield to higher ground, where the entire landscape of divine justice spreads before you, like an intricately designed masterpiece. The satisfaction you feel witnessing karma collect its debts isn't petty. It's restorative. It's the universal acknowledgement of your worth, the cosmic confirmation of your value, the spiritual validation of boundaries they should never have crossed. This isn't about vengeance, it's about balance, the necessary restoration of equilibrium to situations destabilized by their arrogance, entitlement, and misaligned intentions. You don't need to participate in their downfall. You don't need to push what's already falling. You don't need to sink ships already taking on water. Divine timing ensures perfect execution of cosmic justice without requiring your personal involvement. Your assignment now is simply to witness, to observe and acknowledge the perfection of universal law operating exactly as designed. Let their crocodile tears become the soundtrack to your elevation. Let their desperate attempts to rewrite narratives become background noise to your focused creation. Let their frantic energy trying to rebuild what's being divinely dismantled serve as contrast to your peaceful certainty in what's being cosmically constructed for you. Laugh in their face if directly confronted, not from cruelty, but from authentic recognition of the absurdity in their attempt to manipulate what has already been decided in spiritual courts they cannot access. Then walk away, not in fear, but in the confident knowledge that your continued engagement is neither required nor beneficial for processes already in motion. Your laughter carries creative power. It generates new realities while dismantling old illusions. It establishes boundaries while clearing stagnant energy. It announces your liberation while confirming their irrelevance to your continued evolution. Observe from a distance now. The front row seat to divine justice in action is your cosmic reward for maintaining integrity when compromise seemed easier, for speaking truth when lies were more convenient, for standing firm when others suggested you bend. The revelation that comes after loss is rarely accompanied by restoration. The painful awakening to what was squandered seldom results in second chances. The universe ensured they had multiple opportunities to recognize your value, countless moments to acknowledge your worth, abundant chances to treat your presence as the gift it actually was. They chose blindness over vision, arrogance over humility, exploitation over appreciation. These weren't mistakes, they were decisions made repeatedly, despite spiritual nudges, toward different choices. Their pain isn't your responsibility. Their regret isn't your burden. Their belated recognition isn't your validation. The divine always knew your value, even when human perception failed to recognize it. Cosmic forces always acknowledged your significance, even when earthly estimation missed it entirely. For some, the only way to learn the value of what stood before them is to experience its complete absence from their lives. Some lessons can only be taught through permanent loss. Some understanding can only be achieved through irreversible consequences. Look at them now, spiritually bankrupt, energetically depleted, soulfully overdrawn. The cosmic credit they were operating on has been completely revoked. The universal resources they were misappropriating have been reclaimed. The divine loans they never qualified for but somehow obtained have come due with interest they cannot possibly pay. They operated for years on borrowed light, stealing illumination rather than generating their own, siphoning energy rather than cultivating personal power, mimicking spiritual authority rather than earning authentic connection. They constructed elaborate spiritual Ponzi schemes that temporarily fooled others into believing they possessed what they merely pilfered from those truly connected to Source. But universal law ensures that all energetic debts must eventually be repaid. Cosmic accounting maintains perfect records that cannot be manipulated, altered, or erased. Divine auditors never miss discrepancies between what one projects and what one actually possesses. Their spiritual bankruptcy manifests in ways both subtle and dramatic. The light behind their eyes, never truly theirs, has disappeared, leaving flat gazes that no longer convince even casual observers. The charisma they once commanded, borrowed, from sources they can no longer access, has evaporated, leaving awkward energy that repels rather than attracts. The confidence they once projected, stolen from connections they've now lost, has disappeared, leaving desperate uncertainty that reveals their true foundation. Most devastating is the silence they now experience, the deafening absence of divine guidance they pretended to receive but never actually heard, the hollow emptiness where cosmic communication should reside but cannot penetrate due to barriers they themselves constructed through repeated rejection of authentic spiritual principles. The emptiness that follows spiritual resistance becomes their constant companion. The void created through energetic manipulation becomes their primary residence. The absence resulting from authentic connection becomes their most loyal relationship. You need not celebrate their spiritual bankruptcy. The universe never rejoices in unfulfilled potential, regardless of how that potential was misused. But you can acknowledge the perfect functioning of cosmic law that ensures energetic balance must ultimately be restored, regardless of how cleverly someone attempts to circumvent universal principles. They really thought it was sweet. They genuinely believed you were playing the same game by the same rules with the same limited resources they accessed. They honestly convinced themselves that your kindness was weakness, your patience was fear, your restraint was inability. What cosmic miscalculation, what spiritual misjudgment, what divine misreading of what stood before them. Playing in your face activated forces they cannot begin to comprehend. Disrespecting your boundaries initiated processes beyond their spiritual vocabulary to articulate. Testing your divine connection unleashed consequences. Their limited consciousness cannot fully process even as they experience them in real time. When they came for you, they inadvertently volunteered to become cautionary tales, living examples, demonstrating what happens when someone underestimates a being connected to generational spiritual power. They unwittingly auditioned for the role of warning sign, human evidence showing the consequences of treating cosmic appointment as common encounter. The brutality of their awakening matches the arrogance of their approach. The severity of their consequences corresponds precisely to the deliberateness of their disrespect. The completeness of their downfall reflects exactly the totalness of their miscalculation. Divine justice operates with mathematical precision, delivering consequences perfectly calibrated to actions, intentions, and awareness of what was being violated. Some lessons must be learned publicly so others receive the message simultaneously. Some consequences must be experienced dramatically so the ripple effect reaches everyone connected to the situation. Some examples must be made definitively so future potential offenders recognize boundaries before testing them personally. They thought your spiritual abilities were theoretical, abstract concepts, rather than practical technologies capable of dismantling physical realities. They believed your ancestral connections were metaphorical, poetic descriptions rather than literal links to forces operating beyond dimensional limitations. They assumed your cosmic protection was psychological, self-soothing mechanisms rather than actual shields maintained by beings they cannot perceive. Let their example speak so you don't have to. Let their experience educate so you don't need to explain. Let their consequences communicate so you can maintain your peace without justifying the forces aligned with your protection. The battle is over, but your glory has just begun. The war is won, but your victory lap extends beyond what eyes can currently perceive. The smoke clears to reveal not just survival, but transformation. Not mere endurance, but complete metamorphosis into what they feared you might become. Your light was never extinguished. It was strategically dimmed to identify who was worthy of illumination. Your power was never diminished. It was tactically restrained to document who deserved connection. Your presence was never reduced. It was methodically concentrated to determine who qualified for proximity. Your path forward involves neither retribution nor redemption. You've moved beyond both through spiritual evolution that transcends conventional human response. You walk now in divine neutrality, the spiritual state achieved when perfect balance has been restored without personal intervention. Those who opposed you served their purpose in the cosmic plan. The divine uses everything, including opposition, to position chosen vessels exactly where they need to be. Without even realizing it, your greatest enemies became cosmic elevators, universal promoters, spiritual catapults launching you precisely where you were always destined to stand. Thank them silently, not for their intentions, which were misaligned, but for their function in the divine plan, which was perfectly executed despite their conscious aims. Express gratitude not to them personally, but to the universal intelligence that orchestrates growth using whatever materials are available, including the resistance that strengthens spiritual muscles and develops cosmic calluses needed for the next phase of your journey. The path forward isn't about proving anything to anyone. That work is complete. It's about embodying everything to everyone, showing through your existence what alignment with divine purpose actually produces. It's not about convincing others of your value. It's about creating at the level your value naturally generates when unobstructed by those who couldn't recognize it. The greatest revenge isn't getting even. It's getting elevated to levels they cannot access, even if granted unlimited resources. The most powerful response isn't matching their energy. It's operating at frequencies they cannot perceive, even if given enhanced spiritual sensitivity. The ultimate answer isn't defeating opponents. It's transcending the entire battlefield, where conflict was once necessary, but is now irrelevant to your expanded purpose. Your ancestors smile. The universe applauds. Cosmic forces celebrate. Divine. Intelligence nods in satisfied acknowledgement that another chosen vessel has completed initiation and stands ready for assignment only they can fulfill. This was always your destiny. This magnitude was always your birthright. This radiance was always your inheritance. They just helped reveal what was already there, what was always there, waiting for the perfect moment to fully activate and permanently transform the spiritual landscape for generations to come.